Shalom. I really don't have time for this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I considered doing a long presentation explaining basically just another disclaimer explaining why I'm doing this, how I'm doing this, why I would do such thing, why I'm not doing what people are going to all accuse me of doing. And so I really should stop making disclaimers, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's against my religion to trespass on other people's religions. Even if the CRC had chosen quite explicitly to require all of their female pastors to be married lesbians, I would have zero warrant whatsoever to be trespassing on their religion. And so for the people who think that I am somehow promulgating my own views, first of all, my own views aren't what the vast majority of people assume that they are. Jewish views on basically everything are far more nuanced than I could explain simply to any Christian at all, much less briefly. And my views, so this is not me in any way trying to impose my views on the CRC. As I said, the CRC could literally require that every single one of their churches be pastored only by married lesbian women. And I don't think that a Jew could make an argument that it is even permissible for us to advocate that they not do so. And anybody who wants the details of that, I can certainly try to explain it, but we'll forgive you for a kiddie indulgence. Yeah. I tried to get Happy to at least go on Happy Cam for a little bit, but I don't think she will. Let me see if she's on. She may, in fact. So we may, in fact, briefly have Happy Cam. Although apparently, so there you go, Happy Cam. Although apparently Shadow has decided that she wants to go play with the camera, as you can see from the movements, because Shadow is Shadow. Say hello, Shadow. So, Shadow Cam or Happy Cam? Or both? But I will explain that first and foremost, I have many, many friends in the CRC now who are being affected not by the obviously all physical, all things in the world are in fact reflections of spiritual realities, but the spirit that is affecting the CRC Synod is not. Well, it is and it isn't, but it's the spirit of wokeness and discord that is an authoritarianism, and it's it's a very different spiritual malady than most people assume I am concerned with. I am concerned with the breakdown of process and hierarchy and community among and shalom among my neighbors. Yeah, so if anybody wants to jump on and discuss it, I will gladly discuss it. Probably should just be going to bed. Life is just getting busier and busier for me. But I guess that's a good thing. Say hi, Shadow. But I am going to be inviting people on, probably not onto Randos United's, probably going to keep it on my own channel to try to insulate Mo and PBK and the foundation. From my insanity. It is what it is. What can I say? Shavua Tov, Reb Yitz. Well, we had Korach, so. Nehushtan. Actually, the Christians have a very interesting interpretation in the Gospel of John about Nehushtan. Which surprisingly I found not as crazily Christianly weird. So let me see if I can find. John 9. Yeah. This is one of the things that makes me think that maybe the Gospel of John was, in fact, originally written by a Jew and then edited. Let me pull it up. What's that? Gospel of John. No. 12. Sorry. 12. Yeah, 12. No wrong chapter. Do I have it up? I don't have it up. Hey, Tim. So, Jesus predicts his death on the cross. Now notice the capitalization, because Christians only capitalize things when they're lying to you. Soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me, capitalize again, from this hour. But for this purpose I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Wow, they're not lying. Then a voice came from heaven saying, I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. Therefore, the people who stood by and heard it said that it had thundered. Others said, an angel has spoken to him. So there's a bat kol saying that Nitkadashti betoch b'nei Israel. Jesus answered and said, this voice did not come because of me, but for your sake. Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. And I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all peoples to myself. This, he said, signifying by what death he would die. The people answered him, we have heard from the law that the Christ remains forever. And how can you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? And I won't get into the whole Son of the Man thing. Who is this Son of Man? And like, I don't see any Son of Man here. Oh, well, I guess here, let's read before. Now there were certain Greeks among those who came up to worship at the feast. Then they came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee, and asked him, saying, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. Philip came and told Andrew, and in turn Andrew and Philip told Jesus. But Jesus answered them, saying, the hour has come that the Son of Man should be glorified. Most assuredly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much grain. He who loves his life will lose it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life. If anyone serves me, let him follow me, and where I am, there my servant will be also. If anyone serves me, him my Father will honor. So apparently that's what they're trying to tie together to say Son of Man, but like, I don't know. There seems to be a slicing here, but then Jesus said to them, and this is the part where I was talking about, a little while longer the light is with you, walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. He who walks in darkness does not know where he is going. While you have the light, believe in the light, that you may become sons of light. These things Jesus spoke and departed, and was hidden from them. Hold up. I thought this doesn't look like what I was trying to find. Did I mean? This is not what I was trying to find. Where's what I was trying to find? Sorry, John 3, apparently. I read you the complete wrong thing again. Can you tell I don't know my Gospel of John very well? Okay, this time I'm going to find what I'm looking for first. There it is. Okay. So this is the story of him and Nicodemus. Nicodemus answered and said to him, how can these things be? Jesus answered and said to him, are you the teacher of Israel and do not know these things? Most assuredly, I say to you, we speak what we know and testify what we have seen, and you do not receive our witness. If I have told you earthly things and you do not believe, how will you believe if I tell you heavenly things? No one has ascended to heaven, but he who came down from heaven, that is the Son of Man who is in heaven. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. So Christians have this idea that the cross is like Nehushtan, and my dog is no longer there. And so they, so they have this idea of Nehushtan and the cross and Jesus. But what I find really interesting is that Beferish, Nehushtan becomes an idol and has to be destroyed. So it's not like I so disagree with that idea. You know what I mean? So that's the interesting thing I found. And I'm sorry for reading the wrong places several times. But I don't know the Gospel of John very well. But, I mean, yeah, so my point being, like, it's not like I disagree very much with the way Father Stephen sees Jesus as a type of Mashiach ben Yosef. I really don't. It's just I see it very, very differently than he does. And therefore, I think Nehushtan is, in this iteration, also destined to need to be destroyed because it has become idolatry. There's a bunch of you watching. Nobody's joining. I can see my cat and dog. You guys can't see my cat nor my dog. Despite all my efforts. To entertain you with cats and dogs. Dr. Friedman.
All right.
How you doing?
Welcome.
I'm hearing you. Let me see my microphone. Say something. Yeah, it's me. This headphones like die really quickly for some reason. Have you noticed that?
Depends how much you shove them in your pockets.
I never shove these in my pockets. Like, apparently dead phones are not made to.
You think by the year 2023 we'd have that down?
We would. Chezi says Chezkiah does destroy it. This is, in fact, the max of meaning. He is the maximum of all meaning.
Allegedly.
So, Dr. Friedman, how is therapy going?
Let's see. So I'm full time at the forensics role now, and I've been finding it very satisfying work. Though I have some reservations with the systems I'm working with, but I guess that's typical.
Just to clarify, Dr. Friedman isn't actually a doctor; he's an ACSW, but close enough. He's a doctor of the soul.
Yeah, I joined the stream even though I don't know anything about Synod. I've like listened to some of these talks about it, but I haven't like watched any of the material.
Uh, honestly, I almost did a whole presentation of like Jewish views on this stuff because it's like I keep on like I just know there's a lot of people who think that my involvement is um, based on some belief that regarding the actual content of the decision, and it's like, no, I actually don't care about the content of the decision at all, and I am perfectly serious. If the CRC decided that um, all of their churches must only be led by married lesbians, I would be like, that's their decision. Not a decision I agree with, but wouldn't bother me the way this is bothering me, which is, and frankly, I don't even think I would have permission as a Jew to stick my nose into their religious stuff. But what's going on is I am seeing authoritarianism destroying the fabric of our culture through its deliberate destruction of the CRC.
Like what's happening in the CRC is a small example of what's going on in the bigger picture.
Yeah. Well, not just a small example. It is one of the bridges that are falling. Like, so, American society works because we have systems and norms that work, right? Like all the supposed people who were so concerned about we have and Christian. All the supposed.
Sorry.
You're echoing all over the place, Tim.
Sorry about
How
that.
dare you? Do you know Max? You know Max.
No, we've never met.
Oh,
I've seen you lurking.
you guys
Hi, Tim.
live like in like 10, 15 miles from each other?
Oh, really?
I don't know, maybe closer to 30 miles.
Are you in Sacramento?
San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
It's not that far.
A couple hours.
Yeah, I've driven from Los Angeles to the both of them in one day, and back actually. It's only a couple of hours during traffic. If there's no traffic, it's not even 2 hours. Come on.
I haven't been to San Francisco in like 6 years.
Yeah, but that's because you're sane.
I used to go all the time, but after I guess after COVID, I guess since before COVID started. Yeah, I was going. Yeah, so it hasn't been that long, I guess.
Max can show you all the bison. Did you know there are bison in San Francisco?
I did not know that.
There are bison in San Francisco. Max showed me the bison.
Okay. Care to explain?
There's not much more to explain.
Oh, okay. There's this bison. What, like in the zoo or something, or what?
It's run by the zoo, but it's located in Golden Gate Park.
Okay.
There's just bison in Golden Gate Park. I have no idea.
Golden Gate Park is pretty cool. Like, my sister-in-law used to live in Mission District and right next to the park, and we didn't go in there. I went into the park a couple of times, but it's pretty cool. There's a beautiful, famous Russian church there next to the park. Are you familiar with the Max?
Yeah, the Russian Orthodox, or is it Greek, with the big golden domes?
Yeah, it's Russian. And the fascinating thing about that is that the first canonized saint of the Orthodox Church, his body is lying in state in the sanctuary of the church. So if you go into that church, there's a casket with just a plexiglass top on it, and his body is lying there.
Wow, I'm not sure a Jew is allowed to go into that building even if it weren't a church.
Yeah.
That church is about 3 blocks from where I go to shul.
And he goes to a Russian shul.
So the story is briefly during the this guy was a bishop, and he went to Shanghai to serve the white Russians who had fled to China in the 30s. And then he had, during World War II, when the Japanese were invading, they evacuated to an island in the Philippines. And this guy, he was Bishop John. He came to the United States, and he just stood on the Capitol steps. And he didn't speak English or anything, but he just stood on the Capitol steps, hoping to find a way to get his people to America. And some senator took interest in him and helped him get everybody relocated to San Francisco. And that's why there's a Russian Orthodox community there to this day. And so Bishop John, he eventually was canonized a saint, and his body was exhumed. And one of the traditions in certain parts of Orthodoxy is that a body that does not decay is sometimes considered
That's a Jewish. Yeah, that's actually a verse in the Bible.
a body. Really, there's a tradition in Judaism that a body doesn't decay. That's sign of holiness.
Yes.
Interesting. So his body doesn't decay, and so it's lying there, and you go and everybody venerates the casket when they visit that church.
That's not Jewish. So this is the perfect opportunity for me to announce a new This Little Corner project. We are issuing our own translation of the Bible. It is a new version of the DRA that is going to be translated into lolcats by ChatGPT.
Wow.
And we are going to call it TLC Bible, the lolcats Bible.
And it'll be our greatest accomplishment so far.
Well, if it's done respectfully, and we're going to definitely make sure that it is done respectfully enough that Father Eric at least doesn't feel like it's disrespectful. I think it's a good. So there was an attempt at making the lolcats Bible before, and it was actually published and stuff, and it's not very good, and it's out of print, and it doesn't really include the entire Bible. But some of it's been interesting, and I like the idea of an abridged Bible, but I don't like the idea of an abridged Bible. And I really like the DRA translation. I think it's probably the best one I've seen yet. And I would like to see it kind of updated, especially, and if anybody who's used the Bible bot on my Discord realizes how annoying it is that the psalm numbering is in Vulgate as opposed to Masoretic. And so Emma agreed to be the editor-in-chief, and I think ChatGPT may be the perfect vehicle to make it happen. And we can abridge a lot of the stuff like in a cutesy way, like, and and this is, and insert here versus X through Y from Chronicles, or this psalm is just like Psalm X, except instead of Sky God, it says whatever we use the other name, like however we want to make cutesy references, or like, or like find a cutesy way of saying the begats instead. And it could actually be like something you could read through as a cute and interesting way of like a first read through the Bible.
Tell me it'll be a picture book.
If you want to draw pictures, we could definitely include pictures in the book, but Emma and Father Stephen and probably a few other people are going to have to not be like, no, this is bad.
Do you have like a sample of text or something like that? Like I'm not comprehending what you're saying right now.
So there's actually the Lolcats Bible online. You can just
LUL?
no LOL.
LOL cat, like CAT
Yes.
S Bible.
Yes. Hello, Sandy.
Hey, that's fabulous. And the Emma will be.
Oh.
Emma is the one who inspired me to think about it. She's the one who told me about it, and I took a look at it, and it was hilarious. And I think it's a fun little project. And I went to go buy a copy of it, and it's like I saw it's not very good quality, and it's like, hey, we could probably do this a lot better.
Nice.
And ChatGPT could probably make it a lot easier. And I've been kind of nudging Father Eric about issuing an NDRA because the DRA has a few issues which make it less than perfect.
This is amazing.
Is it funny? Do you like
hilarious. It? Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's hilarious, and I think if it's done properly, I think it's good. Fezzy, you have words to say.
Good morning or good evening to all of you. Shavua Tov Max and Shavua Tov Jacob. Before I jump into more religious stuff, Tim, what was your thoughts on the Navigating Patterns live stream you were on?
Oh, it was interesting because like I decided earlier in the week that I wanted to try to get Mark, because when he talks, it just goes over my head completely, and I don't know where he's coming from. And I think that I thought that the problem was I didn't know where he's coming from. Like, who is this guy? Where is he coming from? What is his perspective? Because he's saying all of these things like, oh, this is the way it is. And like, okay, I don't know what you mean by that. And so I kind of like decided this week I would try to figure out what Mark is talking about. And
did I miss something important? What happens on Navigating Patterns?
I'll explain. I basically, so I showed up on yesterday, and there was a gentleman named Richard who apparently has been on the CRC Voices community, and he was very much just had a very materialist. He self-identified as someone who believes in correspondence theory of truth, and so they were going back and forth, and this guy just wasn't having it. He was very inflexible, not really trying to understand. I think just kind of
Who,
being
Richard?
argumentative. Yeah, I think it was just kind of being argumentative, kind of because Mark kind of, I think he was trying to figure out Mark too, and they're both like low in agreeableness.
It's
people.
impossible to figure out, Mark.
It was
I
just
don't know.
interesting for me to see Tim watch this guy Richard sort of have like a breakdown. He's like, but I'm speaking like our vocabularies, we're not speaking to each other. I'm using logic, you're not. And like Mark
Yeah.
and his crew are like, no, we're telling you a story. It's about meaning. You have to understand us. So
Yeah.
I just see
Yeah.
Tim looking there being like, what's happening? But it
No, I
was
thought it was good
entertaining.
actually. I started to actually get it a little bit. And I got what Mark was saying. In that particular case, I understood what he was saying. And I thought what was weird is that Richard was saying essentially the same thing. He did, from my perspective, he said the same thing, which was a completely wrong way to carry. That was not correspondence theory. And it's like he didn't know what correspondence theory was. He said, but he was kind of like expressing like a, basically he and Mark basically said the same thing, but then they were both saying that they didn't, that there were completely different perspectives. I thought it was very strange, but yeah,
This okay, this is
Here we
just
go.
hilarious. Like Paul Vanderclay is trolling in the chat, and Sally Joe's sitting there, and this guy Richard looks incredibly Dutch. And Tim, like, I haven't listened to any of this, but like this screen is just making me definitely want to watch this stream.
Well, another reason why it sort of resonated with me is because I'm thinking about the conversation that Lloyd had with regards to Senate, and then people were ask Lloyd what his experience was on the TLC, right? Like just like jumping on and being like bombarded with people and Chad with his mask on. So here too, I saw this guy Richard sort of land on navigating patterns and less initiated with the TLC, and Tim, let's say, is more so. And I was wondering if that was what the interaction should have been. At some point, should Mark have been like, listen, I see you're not understanding me, but like we're gonna take like 10 minutes to just like, take a step back and let's re-engage. But instead it was very much sort of like sink or swim. Like, Richard, if you understand what we're talking about, great, and if not, like, why are you here?
Yeah.
That's what I tried. That's what I tried to do with Lloyd, and was asking him questions that I pretty much knew the answers to. And Paul's like, Jacob obviously didn't watch my video with him.
Who said that?
Paul Vanderclay. Well, I mean, I didn't remember the exact particulars, so when I was asking, I mean, I just figured it was like, when things are not incredibly memorable, I tend to forget them. And so like, oh yes, another CRC pastor who was called by a, like, I'm not going to remember what you said about being called by,
So I spent some time trying to figure out Mark, like I said, and because he, like, one thing he keeps saying, I'm trying to come up with a model of him, right? And he's like, don't try to make models, just listen to what I'm saying, and then you'll, and just understand the concept. And it's like, well, I need to know where you're coming from.
Okay.
And so I tried to, and I never like knew about his bio, so I finally went back and watched his first conversation with Paul, which he kind of reluctantly went into his bio. But I was confused because Mark, he hangs out in the Father Eric streams, so I started to kind of like think, oh, maybe he's Catholic, but I don't think he's religious at all, or he's not Christian.
Okay, so this is how I figured out Mark Lefebvre. The trad caths will know who Marcel Lefebvre is.
I know who this is, yeah.
And it wasn't until I realized they must be somehow related that I really started understanding Mark Lefebvre.
Interesting.
I mean, they must be somehow. I mean, he can't just both be named. Like, even if it's just the spiritual coincidence of the universe naming them similar names. But Marcel Lefebvre is the founder of the Society of St. Pius X,
Yes.
which is the schismatic trad cats who decided that the Pope isn't Catholic enough. And
I
for
know a
me,
fair amount about these people, actually.
yeah, for me, that's like, yeah, that made me like, it was like, I see a certain resonance between Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre and Marc Lefebvre.
Well, Mark is his father was full French Canadian. Or did he say both sides of his family French Canadian?
Really?
Yes.
Darn. Sorry.
So no, Mark.
I did not just say darn.
I look. I respect Mark. That's why I respect him. I think he's in many ways an ally. There's a lot of things I disagree with him about. I don't know. It's like Mark. He's kind of a frenemy. Like, I don't know if he lived in Los Angeles, if I would spend much time with him. I have a really hard time spending much time with him. But, like, not everybody has to be my cup of tea, you know? I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
My point was less about, let's say, Mark the individual, and more about the process of a term people used it before, like on-ramping, but like less, I mean, someone that's searching for something, that's one thing, but Richard, this guy just sort of happened to find himself on this channel. Or like Lloyd wasn't looking like, I'm looking for friends right now. He was like, okay, I'm like landing on this channel that's been talking about Synod. So like, what does that look like? And it was just interesting just for me to see how the community, manages to deal with like a newbie and bring him in, or try to explain to him like where he walked into.
Is this Richard guy just a CRC member, or is he a CRC pastor?
I didn't know. I didn't gather exactly what was going on with him.
He looks very Dutch to me.
Yeah.
He was moving from being like, frustrated to flabbergasted to like intrigued. I think he was like, at some point he's like, why am I not understanding what they're saying? Like, they're speaking English. I speak English. Like, so I didn't know if that was like a feature or a bug. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't know. He seemed to be somewhat enjoying it to me.
Do
I
we
hear
have
that,
to
but
do
then-
an actual commentary on this? Do I have to run it and watch it?
It's very frustrating, Jacob. You just like watch a few minutes of it and get.
Is it more frustrating than Andrea's discussion with Dr. Woke?
I love that one. I thought it was great.
What do you like about it? People have been asking me to do a
because Paul didn't let
commentary,
him
and
off the hook. Paul is
I didn't
usually
even
like so.
watch it.
Paul's so winsome, but he didn't let that guy off the hook.
Really?
And
yeah, he from the beginning, he had like his little twinkle in his eye, and he was grilling him. He was not happy. And by the way, just to be clear, like Jacob, you tell him he's fired and go around speaking to him about like how all his scriptures align. He's like, well, Jacob, it's an interesting idea. Here, this guy was like, I don't know, anything the guy said. Paul was like, no, like knocking him down. It was very fun to see.
it was great.
Oh,
Yeah,
this is really this is making me want to watch it. I
you
thought
should watch it. I got the sense that because Paul said one of the things he said was like, "Oh, I've got thoughts about the Orthodox Christians," and it made me think that the day that Paul gets so pissed off for whatever reason because we attack him, from Orthodox perspective or something, and then he actually shares his real true thoughts about Orthodox Christians, that it'll be the end of the corner for many people.
to
For the some of the ortho bro-ish types, but any of those ortho bro-ish types already probably don't watch because of my my contributions.
It's true. I mean, like Paul's shared his thoughts on it numerous times. It probably doesn't go beyond what we've already heard too much.
And Father Stephen pisses off the ortho bros more than
like-
Paul ever could.
I feel like Father Stephen pisses off Paul.
That's what Father Stephen feels like as well. But Paul was like, why would anybody think that?
Well, because he had that conversation. I don't know who he's talking with, but he's like, "Oh, Father Stephen knows what he's doing when he calls me Dominique Vanderclay, right? He knows what he's doing, like as if it was
A
he was
dig.
intentionally trying to get under his skin or something."
So okay, Paul. Okay, now I'm gonna get myself into trouble. But Paul, I had a discussion with Paul about Father Stephen, and
Jacob, are you sure you want to share it publicly? You wanna take another
I
second
am
to think
only
about
going
it,
to
be like,
share what I said, which is that there is a big difference between Paul calls me a troll all the time, and it's like, Paul, I don't troll. There's a difference between what I do and trolling, which is I try to make things that I am trying to say understood to people who, if I were to sugarcoat it, would just read it a different way. And that's part of actually my frustration with this book we're reading in our book club, The Great Partnership by Dr. Jonathan Sachs, Rabbi, Doctor. He was also a PhD, I'm pretty sure.
and the Lord.
And the Lord, yes. He went by Rabbi Lord Sachs. He sugarcoats everything. It's just so sugarcoated. Like because I know his theology, I know that like how did I think Elijah put it this way? He said Rabbi Sachs gives compliments to Christians a lot like somebody who goes up to a mega church pastor and says, "You have a really nice building here," right? It's
Jacob,
like,
as Mary Poppins says, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. And you have to realize at some point, I'm with you, that you can't be sugarcoating something that like ultimately is nonsensical or poison. But I think masterfully, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs is trying to speak to a global community. And I know in this little corner we're less pro, let's say, kumbaya as in kumbaya, but you have to realize some people are not, or many people can't handle the Jacob version
yeah.
of
No.
you know,
I am all for kumbaya in the places like where it works. I mean, this is why I let you and Yosef on my channel, right? No, but I have an appreciation for kumbaya, and if my tactics, so I wish kumbaya worked better than the things that I am good at doing. But the things that I'm good at doing do actually achieve. If they didn't achieve some of the things that I think are important, I probably would just delete my channel and stop being the provocative person that I am.
okay, because Max is a Jew, and I know Sandy loves Jacob, in the best way possible. I mean, I just know like you're not. I'm asking now, Tim, what do you appreciate the way Jacob goes about these things? And I know the answer is like generally speaking, yes, and things like that. But if you could change, would you want it to be less flamboyant, less like no need to be like saying that that Paul's an idiot, or like as long as like it's coming like Jacob's intentions, Like you're fine with any sort of terminology he uses.
Not only am I fine with it, I've never met anybody like Jacob before, and I think it's awesome. I, when I first, when I saw your
I am
interactions
pretty
on-
awesome, you know.
when I saw your interactions on Twitter initially, I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, but after I got to know, actually the first time I ever saw you was, I don't know, I guess it was about the drama or something, and there was something between
Drama
you and,
about the drama.
yeah, I don't know. I didn't even know what that was about. But I saw a video on Paul's channel and you were there and there was some drama and stuff. But that was my first introduction to you. But Paul went about that in such a way that he in which he was acknowledging the value of Jacob. And so I was curious and I checked your stuff out, and and now that then once I knew who you were, then all the stuff on Twitter and the way you behave is just like hilarious to me. But
Is that the
So
one? Like, was he live on with Paul when you saw
No.
him? Is that the one where Paul was explaining Jacob?
there was a Paul explaining, and he was bringing in clips from a previous live thing that Jacob was on.
Oh my!
Paul-
You were the only other person I've met here who ended up here for watching that video.
No, actually, that video, like, Ken, I think Ken also. Well, I think Ken ended up coming onto my channel because Paul described me as a force of nature, and Ken's like, "Well, I got to get to know this guy." So.
I'll ask one more question on this, and then I'll change the topic if you guys are okay with that. But Tim, let's say your wife wanted to be involved in this little corner, right? How would you preference? Like, how would you? Well, I guess what do you explain to her your involvement here is, right? When she's like, "I told you to take out the garbage like an hour ago," and you're like, "No, you have to understand. I was watching this Jew yell." What? How are you explaining to her what you're doing on this little corner? And let's say she wanted to go on this little corner, what would you tell her to expect? Let's say from Jacob, or would you ask Jacob, say, "Listen, my wife's coming on, so like bring it down to like a 6," or you'd be like, "No, like it's all good, she can handle it."
Well, first of all, though in a self-deprecating way, I just talk about it like I just say, I use my best Kip from Napoleon Dynamite impression and say, "Hey, I'm going to go to the chat rooms. It might take 4 or 5 hours, and I'll see you later."
Okay.
Because it's like,
Well, she knows you do the Bible studies and stuff,
Yeah.
and she actually read that letter I wrote to your priest.
mm-hmm.
So
She knows I've been listening to Pastor Paul, and had been going to the Estuary meetings, had been interested in Jordan Peterson and all of that it's been how many years now? 6 years? I don't know. So that's not new, but exactly what we're doing here, I'm spending a lot more time, in chat rooms, basically. I don't think she really comprehends that. But and I was thinking about that with the whole on-ramp thing. Like, I just have no idea how I would try to explain it to her, what we're doing. It's just something I don't think she would. I think Nate suggested bringing her to a physical event, which, if that was logistically possible, given that we got two little ones, I think that would be a good thing. But
does she go to the lay conferences with you when you go to the lay conferences for your church?
No, she wouldn't be into that.
I would think that bringing her somewhere would be a great idea. When I look at Corey's wife, who came and their little ones to Chino, and how, what she said about it after the fact. And my memory is old and frayed, so I don't remember my exact conversations with Emma. But when we were on some of the pre-Chino talks that Grizz was holding, we were talking about Jacob and Paul, and my introduction of her to Jacob was trying to explain to her why I was afraid of Paul but not afraid of Jacob. And I love watching Emma engage. And some of that goes to the whole integrity thing. Jacob yelling to from a place where he's willing to hold ground, but he'd say exactly what he thought in an honest way, so you knew exactly where he stood, was one of the reasons that I said to Emma, coming out of my background, that I wasn't afraid of Jacob. But with Paul, the things he laughed at and some of the ways that he would speak, I couldn't quite place the ground under him to know when it was coming from that same place or not, because it sometimes looked like it was and it sometimes looked like it wasn't. And so for me, and probably for Emma too, actually having the opportunity to engage in a real life event, like for me, having actually met Paul at Chino, it's not like I spend a lot of time with him, but I'm not afraid of him. I can talk to him and, you know, sort of know where I stand. And Emma's like all over talking to Jacob, and I love watching that.
One thing I would say is, like, if I brought my wife to an estuary meeting, she would for sure not be interested.
No,
She would find it very irritating.
So I wanna dig into that just a little more, just because I'm thinking about, like, on my wife's end, like when I talked to her about what started with, like, because he's hanging out with his Christian friends, and I try to explain, you know, that these kind of conversations, and not, I would say, like, not all of them, but many of them, you know, lead to more meaning, lead to more, you know, a deeper and truer understanding of, let's say, God in certain perspectives. And I explain, you know, that doesn't that sound amazing? Don't you want to learn more, go deeper, like understand more? And, like, in theory, the answer would be like, yes, but I could see her being like, well, you know, no, I'm not. I don't want to talk to strangers about God more. Now, like, when your wife is seeing, you know, it's been a few years. You just said Jordan Peterson, things like that. Now she sees the man that she loves. The person she's like, yes, not only do I love you, you and I can make more people together. You're fantastic, okay? However, you have this 6-year journey that you're going into, and you're going in on it solo, and it's as if, like, you know, like, where do you bring her in, right? And she's like, but I love Jesus, so, like, what are you worried about? And you're like, no, but it's more than that. It's like, how do I bring you into, like, to want to know more, to go deeper with me? And I could also understand if she had like, no problem, Tim, let's do it. And, like, she goes on the live stream, and then, like, the first thing she sees is Jacob, and he's like, you're a heretic. And you're like, well, okay. So, like,
I think the only thing that would be enticing to her would be the relationships with people. And honestly, that's the thing that at least in the past year has been the most interesting thing to me about the corner, is getting actually to know people.
So what you're saying is you're going to bring your wife and kids to Jerusalem.
Don't tempt him. His parents are just there.
We were planning to do that, but now I'm broke, so I'm not going.
Oh, you just bought a house, right?
Yeah.
And he finished redoing a bathroom.
I'm in the midst of that still, but yes.
Is this in the house?
Huh? Uh-oh.
Missed the last word.
Once you get somebody to rent the old house, you'll be flush in cash and be able to come to Jerusalem.
That's I hope so. We're planning to go actually in September.
No. It's very expensive in September. You should come in February.
Yeah.
When we have the conference.
Yeah, that'd be super cool.
Father Stephen probably won't be able to make it.
But I might be able to get some connections with my connections there, and we could visit some Christian sites that.
Well, the plan is the week before will be Jewish sites, and the week after will be Christian sites for anybody who wants to. But it'll depend on how much money. Honestly, if once the foundation is up, we're gonna ask for money, and if we get serious amounts of money. I want to be flying in like basically all the people who people see on various channels, and because my hope is to have like a 1 to 20 ratio of people who are lurkers to people who actually come on onto the thing.
So, speaking of the foundation, would you be interested, Jacob, in arranging to meet with Mother Markella together?
I would love to meet with isn't she an abbess? Is she called Mother or Abbess?
We call her Mother Markella. Yeah, she's the abbess. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Sister Selwina or
Silawani?
Silawani
Yeah.
Suggested it as well. I mean, honestly, this is so far from actually happening. Max is more likely to make it happen than I am. He's already an ACSW. He's going to be an LCSW next year. I have like 3 years to go. So,
well, once you get the sisters praying for your project, things can happen quick.
Well, yeah. I mean, what did you hear about the project, Max? I am thinking of one day, if someone wants to donate millions of dollars to me, start buying a property near a one or more monasteries, including possibly the monastery that I went and visited, for an Noahide Beit Midrash that is a rehab center, so that it's a retreat where people can go for all kinds of treatment, and people can actually live there. Normal people can live there, and people can, but it'll be a Noahide Beit Midrash, but it'll be near a monastery. So like, if we get Christians who are doing 12-step, they can go to the monastery so that we're not evangelizing. And
are you assuming though that Noahides need rehab, or this is just
no? No. The point is to have.
I was like, why am I going to 12?
No, the point is to have a rehab. This is my This is my thought for once I become an LCSW and open up a rehab. Like what my dream rehab would be a Noahide Beit Midrash that is near one or more monastery.
I think that'll be great, and Tim and his wife will come visit.
Well, Tim and his wife already visit the monastery. I went and visited, and his parents live there.
Do you guys and ladies remember Jordan Peterson's interpretation of the copper snake?
I don't remember.
So in the Bible and in this weekly portion, the Israelites, this is right before they go into the land, right? Like in this portion, we also skip like 20 years, like a tremendous amount of time goes past this in the Bible right now. And the whole generation of the golden calf, that whole generation went Shabbat Shalom. They're dead. They're done. And then the Israelites are about to go in. They start complaining because they get attacked by snakes. And they go to Moses and they complain. And also over here, the text stresses how when he was talking to Korach, last portion, he was a lot more calm. And when he talks now to the Israelites, he's really sort of had enough. He's 120 years old. He's a cranky old man at this point. And he's really had enough of their complaining. He goes to God and tells God, we have an issue with the snakes. And God's response is build make this copper snake, and whoever looks at it will be fine. Whoever doesn't look at it will perish. Now, Jordan Peterson, his interpretation is a psychological one, and it says that this is the first version of exposure therapy. Right? There's going to be snakes in the desert the whole time. When we're moving into the land of Israel, there's going to be hurdles. We're moving past me doing like splitting of the sea and doing like sort of old school magic miracles. Now you're going to have to face your fears. Whoever looks at the snake and realize, could handle it, he'll be fine. Whoever doesn't dies. And that's actually an interesting interpretation, and I'm fine with it. What I was asking Jacob earlier is I still can't get my head around why God would ask Moses to do this. Like, it's just so bananas after the golden calf, after that whole generation.
It's all about Jesus.
Right. So putting Jesus aside, it is very strange to think God sort of risk it again, bringing in an idol. And this idol stays with the Israelites until Hezekiah, until he destroys it, which is also nuts for him to feel comfortable to destroy something that Moses built. But I'm just throwing that out there as something that you guys could consider, which is just, there's one thing I thought about, which was in this weekly portion, also Moses has his fumble with the rock. Miriam dies, her miraculous well disappears as well, and the Israelites need water. And Moses comes, and instead of speaking to the rock, he hits the rock, and God gets upset about this as well. But I was wondering if any way, if making this copper statue was God sort of teaching Moses a lesson, which is, Moses, it's 120. I thought at this point, if I said speak with your words, to listen to me very carefully. And it seems like you got a little off track, and you felt like you could do your own thing. So right now, I'm going to give you some other commandment that I need you to do, and it's going to sound bonkers, and I need you not to give me any pushback about it. And like, this was like a more specific thing for Moses to deal with. Like, you know what, Moses? Build a statue and do exactly what I tell you, because this would be some sort of like repentance to what you did just now with the rock, but that could be a stretch. I don't know. Anyways, that's my tangent, and I'm throwing it out there.
I remember that now that you mention it, and I also remember being very interested in his interpretation, and I also believe that Jonathan Pajot talks about it in his zombie apocalypse speech from way back. I don't remember what he says about it, but
zombie apocalypse speech. I'm not remembering that one. I mean, I know he loves talking about the zombies, but like, I don't remember that specific line about that.
Yeah, let's see if I can look it up. I don't have any insight on that, but I remember Jordan saying that, and I thought that's very interesting. And I don't know if I've ever heard any other interpretation, like, honestly, on that story.
It is. It's just. It's very. It's weird. And it's like weird that like that the Bible like mentions it, that it was clearly like preserved. It's just like a very odd. I mean, this whole portion is also that you have the red heifer in this portion, and like that's also very mystical, or we don't exactly know why we're doing this. I mean, there's different interpretations, but like why we're doing this red heifer. So, this whole portion is just like riddled with very confusing symbolism. But yeah, I don't know. We could keep on talking about Jacob drama though. It's too much for you. This is too religious for you guys.
I don't have a lot to add to that, honestly.
So one question, just when in previous talking about some of the current topic that's going around the CRC, one of the things that grabbed my attention from Jacob saying is sometimes God tells us that we have to do something just because he tells us that we have to do something. And that came up in this context ages ago. So when you're talking about like they're not doing anything but looking at the serpent,
just looking at the serpent.
Yeah. For something about that when you were saying that, it's because he hasn't there in doing something he's told them to do without giving them context other than sort of where they're at.
We
That sounds
lost
plausible.
Max.
We
Max
did.
never comes on. And
We
you
did.
guys drove him away with your silly Bible talk.
I hope not. Is he
Yeah,
still?
Sandy, what you're mentioning is like there's something called and Jacob, you could try to give me a loose translation for this, but chok umishpat. And
So
there
there
are
are
things.
3 classes of commandments in the Jewish Bible. There are otiot, or mitzvot, which are signs. Which are commandments which God has given to Israel in order to show that we belong to Him. So, for example, tefillin or the Sabbath are like marks of where God claims Israel as His people. Then there are mishpatim, which are judgment, usually translated as judgments. And the judgments are things which a person who believes in God and thinks about it realizes are good things, and therefore, while they may not be commanded of Noahides, many Noahides would keep them anyway, and many of them are commanded of Noahides. For example, do not kill, or respect your parents. These are mishpatim. And then there are hukim. There are things, it's usually translated as statutes, which we do because God said you do them, and we do them. So that includes things like not eating lobster and sexual morality laws.
However, while the first two have reasoning behind them, the last one, let's say, which would include, let's say, the red heifer, don't have a reason. Don't the Bible doesn't give us a logical explanation or a reasoning why we're doing this. What is this supposed to symbolize? And sages, talk about this. And then there's a debate whether or not these reasons exist, as in can they be known to man or not. Maimonides believes that they can be known to man. Others believe that they can't be known to man. But there's something about like what you're saying, Sandy, which is like presumably if they're not supposed to be known to man, it's really a test of, just doing as you're told without any fluff sort of around it. Like just you're doing this because you need to be doing this, and that is also part of in ethics of our fathers that I'm doing with that I'm going to be doing tomorrow, chapter 3, or our third version of this with Ben Bensi. We discuss over there how you want to be worshiping God through love, but that can't be the only method, because love wavers and sometimes you're a little less in love. However, love and combined with reverence, combined with the fact that I'm doing this because I have to be doing this, that goes a much further way and could carry a lot more mileage just on the idea that you're committed to this system. And on that note, I'm committed to my wife not getting upset that I'm walking in late to my son's kindergarten party right now. So
Good to see you.
Later,
catch you guys
Casey.
later.
Good night. Good day. There was a saying I heard. I don't know where it came from, but goes like, "I thank you, O God, that you have given me your law, that I might inscribe on my flesh my love for you."
Shechatamta be'sarim, right? That is, it is one of the. It is part of our liturgy. We say, and the grace after meals. Yes. What was your question about that?
Well, I mean, God gives us things to do, so He gave the people that thing to do to heal them. He gave them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Although,
Or even just gave them that thing to do.
so the way the Kabbalists explain, one of the major ways the Kabbalists explain the reason God created the world is that um, God, God by nature is loving, and the Hebrew word love, ahava, is related to the word hav, which means to give. And therefore, God, by his very nature, must give. It is essential to who he is. And so in Jewish law, the greatest form of giving is to give to that which deserves, uh, to give to that who, to give an opportunity to people to earn what you give them, right? Because they both don't actually deserve it. You're giving it out of love, but you are also not shaming them um, by allowing them to earn it. So the great, better than like simply giving somebody money is giving that person a job, right? And so God does that for us. And the analogy I like to make is when I give Happy her treats, her dog treats, I make her sit and give me her paw, and then I give her the treat. Now, if she were to think that I somehow need her to sit and give me her paw in order to give her the treat, I would like keep the treat for myself, or I, I go and I buy the treats just to give to her. And if she wouldn't get sick by eating all of them, I would let her have as many treats as she likes. And frankly, the only reason I make her sit, I never taught any of my other dogs to shake hands, but she already knew how to shake hands. And she, when I would tell her to sit, would raise her hand because she had learned how to, and it was like part of the routine her former owners had.
Yeah.
So it was like, it's possible that she thinks she's doing me some sort of favor by shaking hands. But we completely understand that, like, I am giving her a task to do for her own good. And that's how you have to view the commandments. God doesn't need you to keep his commandments. God gives you his commandments because it is an opportunity for sanctification.
When Hezi was talking, the word that came to mind was trust. It's a building of trust. But when you were describing the routine with Happy, the word that came to mind immediately was delight. It's a form of delighting in each other, which is, I was trying to explain this in one of the CRC conversations about the difference between relating, relationship, relational, a dynamic of sorts. And these kinds of commands of God, in a way, build space for more. Like, they create that space in my mind when you think of that. If you're doing that something like, and you're likening it to what you're doing with Happy, it creates a generous space in which the two of you relate. But it's not necessary. And in some respect, that's what makes it even better than something that is necessary. Does that make any sense?
Sounded good to me, but I was also doing other stuff and wondering if Andrew has removed his tattoo yet. Andrew?
Someone say something?
If you're not paying attention, why are you on my stream?
Just in case you say Andrew.
Do you still have your tattoo? Glad to see it. Your parents
Yeah,
still
we-
haven't won over yet.
We filibustered.
You filibustered? Good job.
Yeah.
See, the CRC Synod was good for one thing. It taught you how to deal with parents who don't want you to have a cross.
I have a comment on what you said, Sandy. I think I was thinking about the kinds of things that newly married couples do in terms of reassuring one another. Things to reassure one another, like saying "I love you" a lot, or saying that many times, as if you need to reassure one another, or the various kinds of things that or not being able to be silent together, or needing to fill the silence, as being kind of those things where it's like these are like the beginnings of a relationship, and these are the things that are going back and forth. They're not necessary things, and then over time you actually kind of move beyond that, and you can sit in silence with one another, and the kinds of expressions of love get deeper. It could be like going to get diapers in the middle of the night. That's a good expression of it, but it's not as explicit, and you can kind of have, maybe there's potentially issues if you have to be constantly reassuring one another. So I don't know if that makes sense in light of what you said. And I also made the comment on Mark's stream the other day. I told a story about a conversation I had with a monk who was describing how in the monastery, when the monks are, say, walking past one another on the path to go do different separate jobs, they don't look at each other in the eye. They don't smile or say good morning or anything like that. That some of these sort of pleasantries are actually not done. And the reason is because one of the reasons is that those kinds of unnecessary things can be sort of like if you don't do it on one day, then somebody can start thinking, oh, why didn't he say hi to me? Why didn't he? That smile wasn't totally sincere, or whatever. These kind of those kinds of pleasantries can sort of create like exclusive relationships, and exclusive relationship is totally forbidden, and so that's why they're not married. Right? Marriage is an exclusive relationship. So monks they don't have exclusive. I only like brother so and so. Like that would, I'm sure that to some extent they do have these things, but it's not, their whole point is to not have exclusive relationships with people at all. They have a relationship to the brotherhood, and all of the people in the brotherhood, but nothing's exclusive. Like I'm brother so and so's buddy, So many of those pleasantries just go away entirely, and that reminds me of that kind of happens naturally in marriage too.
Yeah, I'm not sure some of that or all of that is exactly what I was getting at with my question about this third form of. Are they all mitzvahs, Jacob? Anyway, it's like it's interesting. I think it must be harder to. Gosh, I feel like I've known God forever. It must be harder to do something that seems pointless at the beginning of something. So in that sense, but just to do something just because, that does build space over time.
You
So in
asked
that
me
sense,
if they're all
we're all three of them. You were,
Well, they are all.
a
So
form of it?
mitzvot can refer to all three of them, but also signs are sometimes in the Bible themselves. So the Bible refers to them as commandments, Commandments, statutes, and well, no,
Signs and
judgments and statutes. That's how it's usually in the Bible. Commandments, judgments, statutes. And commandments, we say, refer to where in other places it says signs, judgments, and statutes. You can find it all over the place.
Yeah. It's interesting. What is a statute? Something established, isn't it? Or is it like in
Well,
general?
I mean, for me, this is why, like, I've been telling Tim, like, I don't care, like, these discussions about words in English mean nothing to me because, like, the definition of words is how the Bible defines them. So, like, we can talk about, like, shame or statute in English, but, like, for me, the Bible defines words. It's not the other way around. And like, as long as you're dealing in translations, then like, okay, I have to pull up one of my favorite Babylon Bee articles.
I'm always dealing in translations when I ask questions like that because my mind's shifting to visual, and the ASL and interpreting.
This is one of my favorite. KJV only pastor engages in intensive word study in original English. Newport's News, Virginia, citing a desire to preach the word faithfully, local pastor Willie Caldwell spent most of the last week in his home office and local library engaging in intensive word studies of a passage from the Gospel of John in its original English. According to sources close to the preacher and lay Bible scholar, Caldwell stayed up late throughout the week trying to translate John 3:16 into modern English from the original King James English in which the Apostle John wrote the Gospel. If you're not going back to the original languages used by the apostles, namely early modern English, then you're really studying the Bible secondhand, Caldwell said, motioning toward the complete hard copy Oxford English Dictionary stacked on his desk next to several King James Bibles. I love digging into the riches of God's words as originally intended by the inspired authors circa 1611. See this word believeth here that John uses? It is perhaps best translated into our modern tongue as believes, Caldwell added, pointing to numerous pages of notes he'd used to come to the conclusion. You can't get this type of depth and richness working in non-original languages like Greek, Hebrew, or Aramaic. You've got to drill down to the original tongue if you really want to unpack what Jesus was saying in his native language, English. And so for me, like,
oh, dear.
whenever you're dealing with Bible like concepts, like, yeah, if I had kids, I would be teaching them Hebrew. Surprise!
Hey, Andrew, a friend of mine was watching our stream, and you were there, and after he sent me a video, 5 refutations of the Monophysites. And
Wonderful.
He's like, you need to share this
Andrew's
with
a
Andrew.
Myophysite. He's not a Monophysite. He's a Myophysite.
So he sent me this video.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you need to share this with Andrew.
Great, go for it.
I'm not gonna do that. Well, I mean, sure, I'll send it to you, but if you want.
Hold on, is this guy Orthodox?
Yeah.
Because Orthodoxy is about propositional doctrine. Like, if that video didn't convince him, he would suddenly go become a Coptic Orthodox and just like change his entire like. Yeah, is that what he's saying?
I think it's a tribal thing.
It is a tribal thing. That's the funny thing that he obviously doesn't seem to like recognize.
No, that's where he's at though. Good buddy.
You're
mine.
friends with Ortho Bros. How can you?
Yeah, most of
Whoa! The hot
How's
new
it going,
girl's
Josh?
here.
Hey, how's it going?
So, I assigned people to seek you out and force you to start a YouTube channel. Have
Oh.
they gotten in contact with you?
I haven't seen anything, no.
Aha. Well, okay, I assigned one person. His name is Phlebas, and apparently he was very impressed by your grandfather.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, I wanted to hop on real quick. You were just reading that article. Yeah, if Jesus wasn't speaking, like, obviously Jesus spoke in English, okay? He spoke in Aramaic maybe like 1 or 2 times. Like when he was on the cross, he said, Eli, Eli, Elam sabachthani, and then he had to immediately translate, which means, in English,
Yeah.
my God, why have you forsaken me? Obviously.
Okay,
Obviously, Jesus
so
spoke in English.
You know what the funniest thing about that is?
What?
So, okay, there's the first translation of the Christian Bible to Aramaic is called the Peshitta.
Yeah.
Okay, and the Peshitta is it's the first translation from Greek to any other language, and it's to Aramaic, which immediately elicits the question, how do you know it's a translation from the Greek to Aramaic and not the original Aramaic?
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Well, I found out because I went and read it. And it's obvious. Which makes it kind of funny because there are people who claim what's called Peshitta primacy, who want to say that it's the beginning. And one of the ways you know that it's definitely a translation is it has, and Jesus said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, and then it translates it to Aramaic, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how you got started on this. Did you see? It was like weeks ago. I saw some lady. I think she was like a Universalist, and she shared. I just pulled it up.
You can share your screen.
Oh no! I pulled it up on my desktop, so I'm just gonna have to like share some on my phone. This was supposedly the Lord's Prayer, translated from Aramaic directly to English rather than from Aramaic to Greek to Latin to English. This is what they're.
I actually want the original. I've tried to reconstruct it into Aramaic. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, but this is what they claim. What they claim the original what the real translation is into English. O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration, soften the ground of our being and carve out a space within us where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the fruit of your mission. Let each of our actions bear fruit in accordance with our desire. Endow us with the wisdom to produce and share what each being needs to grow and to flourish. Untie the tangled threads of destiny that bind us as we release others from the entanglement of past mistakes. Do not let us be seduced by that which would divert us from our true purpose, but illuminate the opportunities of the present moment. For you are the ground and the fruitful vision, the birth, power, and fulfillment, as all is gathered and made whole once again, and so it is. That's not how any sort of translation works. Something that my friends and I, we were going over this. What's hilarious, it's so obvious that this was made up. It was obviously made up from somebody who speaks English, because right, in the English translation, it is, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name." And in this, near the beginning, it says, "Carve out a space within us." And we're just sitting and thinking, oh my gosh, they are like hollowing something out. is like how they translated that.
Okay, I'm going to show you the image that came to mind when I
Yeah.
when I heard you saying this.
The house that I'm buying,
Yeah.
the guy who's selling it, he must be elderly, but he is a priest in the Assyrian church,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, they use the Peshitta.
he's done he translated the Epic of Gilgamesh from Aramaic in 1990.
Okay.
And he's got numerous books that he's published of translations from Aramaic and Assyrian languages. I just thought it'd be a very interesting person to talk to, and I'm curious about how they say the Lord's Prayer.
I think it's out of the Peshitta, but I believe the official position of the
there's a
Assyrian
big
Church is that Peshitta
beef.
is the original.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is silly. Go ahead, Andrew.
All right, I gotta go. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
We lost Andrew. So, Josh.
Between the Coptic.
We lost you, Andrew. You have to say everything you said over again. We didn't hear you at all.
There's funny beef between the Coptic Church and the Assyrian Church. Like apparently there was some sort of like one of those non-official but still kind of important like ecumenical meetings that we just used all of our might to block the Assyrians in, and we just left the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses alone.
Okay, this was recent.
I think it was 2008, but
okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just the CRC Synod which is burning down the churches. This is a Christian tradition. I see.
I'm
leaving the JWs and the Mormons.
Yeah.
Just leave them to their own devices.
Yeah. If you look at our traditions, we are like diametrically opposed, like. So, yeah, it's nothing new, but.
Hold on, but the Armenians, they're pretty big in that area. So like I would think there would be like equivalent beef between the Coptics and Armenians and Assyrians, among the three of them, not just the Coptics and the Assyrians.
So this is gonna go into church history, but the Assyrians are a lot of the impetus behind the heresies of Chalcedon, which we take great pride in having completely stamped out totally. You can see this in how like the Assyrians accept Nestorius as a saint. They say like, oh, we don't have any of his theology or whatever, but I mean, he's a saint. He's still a saint in their church, And
the Armenians don't?
No, the Armenians are with us. They're
Okay.
They're not. Yeah, Assyriacs are like their own little thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we still kind of beef with them over the whatever things that came to a head at Ephesus and Chalcedon.
Are you saying the Reformation isn't really what broke the world? You guys got there first.
Somebody who shall be remain unnamed said, "Remind Andrew that Luther is a Catholic saint," and I'm guessing he means lowercase Catholic. So, Josh, tell us about your theology. Do you believe in penal substitutionary atonement?
Oh yeah, I think that's 100% true. Yeah.
Okay, get off my channel. What are you doing on my channel? Who let you on my channel?
Penal substitutionary atonement, 100%. It has to be.
Oh my god. Why do I let this guy on my channel?
You're not. I question. I do kind of question your like Christianity. That's penal substitutionary atonement. That's one of the things that I question. Like, are you really Christian?
So that's the
really
funny thing. The vast majority of Christians don't believe in penal substitutionary atonement.
I'd never really heard those terms until I married.
This is the thing that like surprises so many Protestants is Catholics don't believe in penal substitutionary atonement, and the Eastern Orthodox don't believe in penal substitutionary atonement.
Because what's their like their claim is like Christus Victor, is that?
Yeah, Christus Victor. Yeah. So you're okay. This is what I was probing to see how much you actually know.
A little bit.
Ah.
So okay,
so the Vatican's official position on penal substitutionary atonement is it's too incoherent to be declared a heresy.
Ouch.
I should also, before we continue, I want to back up. I just said that I like question somebody's like Christianity if they're maybe I should be a little like
less judgmental.
Less judgmental about that. I think.
What do you mean?
There's a lot of. I think
2022, the Holy Synod of the CRC of 2022 affirmed two things: you hate homosexuals and you believe in penal substitutionary atonement.
It's true.
So, like,
it's true. But I think that there's plenty of people that don't understand penal substitutionary atonement that are true believers. They just don't. They just haven't really thought about it. They just haven't thought it through.
Honestly,
you don't have to. I mean, for a lot of things, I think you don't have to have understanding. If we're saved by our understanding.
If you actually believe in penal substitutionary atonement, that is one of the few ways that I think a believing Christian would end up in hell.
Really?
Yes, because it is so clearly condemned in the Bible as a blasphemous thing to say. Ezekiel 18 spends an entire chapter condemning the idea, and I've read the entire chapter to Christians many times over and over again, because honestly, I think it may be the most blasphemous thing some of my good friends believe, even worse than the Trinity.
So then, Josh, I have a question on the penal substitutionary thing. Is okay. So I'm old enough. I remember the whole 4 spiritual laws booklets they used to hand out, and the little bridge picture that you can't get from A to B without the bridge, because you're gonna fall down into the pits of wherever. But what people would often describe was a court scene whereby, somebody is brought up before the judge is God, and because basically God, which is weird because it would say, so the son of God or the son of the judge comes before the judge having done, having something or other that is a fine that cannot be paid. So the judge comes down off the bench and pays the fine and goes back up. And I'm going, is that in any respect similar, because that was kind of hard to even explain, but is that in any respect similar to this penal substitutionary thing?
I would say no, because part of I think what is so important about the fact that Jesus is God, him being God, because I think it was Richard Dawkins or somebody who was saying Christianity is so terrible, it's so awful to say that you have God that requires something of you, and then you have wronged God, and now you owe this thing to God, and this third person just comes in and pays for all of your crimes. He had nothing to do with any of them. So
cosmic child abuse, they called it.
Yeah. And the important bit of Jesus being God is the fact that he was the person primarily wronged. I mean, The fact that Jesus can come in and he tells people your sins are forgiven, he's able to do that because he was the person who was actually wronged. And so he has by being God, he's the only one who can actually just take on that cost.
Well, no. See, okay, no. Hold on. That is categorically different from penal substitutionary atonement. Because if I am the wronged person and I forgive, that's just forgiveness. That's not substitutionary atonement.
I was going to say that sounds more like Judaism. If you sin against God, you make it right between you and God, and if you sin against somebody else, you make it right between you and the other person.
You confess to God, and God forgives you. Voila, you have Judaism. What does that have to do with penal substitutionary atonement?
The belief that your sin is so bad that God still requires that. God says that. Well, but the Bible tells us that for the wages of sin is death. And so that wage does not just go away. That cost doesn't just go away.
Why not? Why not? Why can't God just make it go away?
I would say God's justice requires that sin has to be dealt with. That what we do has to be paid.
Sin definitely has to be dealt with, but repentance does that. That's the point of repentance. I hate to body slam you. I mean, we've been having this debate for a while, and I have a very sympathetic audience. I mean, the people who are watching are mostly watching because I do this penal substitutionary atonement. Honestly, for me, it's all Ezekiel 18. Like, I believe it is just pure blasphemy, and I was so relieved to find out that the Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox don't believe in it, because honestly, it may be the one thing which I think is the most blasphemous belief any Christian has. That God would punish an innocent anything, including himself. Like that God's justice demands that the innocent suffer for the guilty. Like God's mercy allows I don't believe that God's mercy allows people to go free, because I believe repentance is not going free. Repentance, true repentance, is in fact paying more for the sin than anything else, because true repentance is the most important thing. A life of repentance is the reason for creation. But the idea that there is some sort of debt to be paid to anything, like it's just so utterly blasphemous. I seriously worry. So Sam Adams, he's a prominent guy here. He has that channel Transfigured. He was on Paul's channel on Krish. He was on Paul's channel on Friday with the CRC pastors. I don't know if you saw that. He believes in penal substitutionary atonement, and he defends it. And frankly, it's what worries me the most for his soul, because I cannot imagine somebody going on the day of judgment and saying to God, God, yes, I sinned, but I believe that you will punish the innocent for my sin. And that makes it just. That just sounds like justification for God to say, well, you're wrong. If you believe that the innocent should suffer for your sins, then how much more so should you suffer for your sin? You, who are guilty, should suffer for your sins. And by your own judgment, you would be condemned.
It's not totally presented that way. I know, because like, I think I still struggle with elements. So I think
because I don't think that I would claim like
it's not any innocent. It's God Himself being innocent.
Well, Jesus' innocence is something that PSA people claim is somehow necessary.
Yeah, because and I'm gonna butcher it probably because I didn't realize how much I didn't really know about the faith I was following. But basically the fact that Jesus is God in the flesh and also the second Adam. So as if God had recreated somehow, which this part I don't really get, because how can you make a non-sinful creature? And this is the whole Mary thing, because if this is to be true, this isn't like God remaking Adam out of the ground. This is like Mary being the ground, which is somehow untainted pre-fall. And therefore God can somehow have a non-sinful man come from her.
Okay, it's kind of unfair. It's kind of unfair to like ambush you with this, because this is not a friendly audience to PSA.
Yeah, it's all right.
So I don't mean to ambush you with it. Yeah.
So yeah.
I do know at least a bit with like Jesus being the new Adam. That I mean I don't believe the Catholic like perpetual virginity of Mary and like
which is what makes
that she is sinless
context. Because
have you heard one of my favorite jokes? That a woman who is caught in adultery is brought to Jesus, and Jesus says, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." And this woman picks up a stone and throws it at the adulterous woman. And everybody else picks up stones and they kill her. And Jesus turns to the woman and says, "Mom, I didn't mean you."
Yeah. Well, but because I think that a lot of the depiction is that original sin is passed down by men, that it's like Adam's sin is being passed down.
Are you Dutch?
Yes.
I'm like, seriously.
Klumpenhauer, come on.
How did you come to that conclusion? My ex had completely assured me that it was all Eve's fault.
Oh no, yeah. Well, this was kind of interesting. My friends and I we've recently been reading through Paradise Lost.
Yeah.
And there was a really interesting poem that was in the kind of critique section in the back of the book. That it was actually from a poem that was written before Paradise Lost, and I thought it was really interesting. It was going through the Passion, and it was just a small section taken from when Pontius Pilate's wife comes out and is telling Pontius Pilate, "Do not do this," and pleading with him, "Do not send Jesus to his death." And I thought it was a really interesting comparison, that it was basically the author of the poem, who was a woman, she was basically saying that Pontius Pilate's sin was the same as Adam's, that he had the power to act, and he had full knowledge that what he was about to do was wrong, because he knows. He says this man is innocent, and while the leaders, the Jewish leaders, they want to kill him. They don't have the power to do anything unless Pontius Pilate actually goes along with it. So he at that point, he has the same choice that Adam has, where he has the authority. He knows what he's about to do is wrong, and he does it anyway. And this time it's even worse because this time is his wife. His wife is saying, "Don't do it." And there's this nice little poem where she's accusing.
When your wife has
how-
bad dreams.
So this will probably surprise you, but this is actually the Jewish interpretation of Genesis 2, where was it in Genesis 2 or 3, where it says, so God says to Adam, right? So God says to him, and the Lord God commanded. Did I pull it up? You guys aren't seeing that I pulled it up, did you?
No.
I did pull it up. See? Okay. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, "Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For on the day that thou eatest of it, thou shalt surely die." Okay, so notice, says nothing about touching, just says eating, right? And then God says it's not good to be alone, puts him to sleep, takes his rib and, his side, but yeah, and makes woman, and she the serpent comes to her and says, and the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat, neither shall you touch it, lest you die." But that's not what God said, right? God said you can't eat of it. So the Midrash actually says what happened was Adam told her you can't eat of it or touch it. And what the serpent did was, but he didn't tell her that it was his own idea that they shouldn't even touch it. And so the serpent pushed her into the tree. She touched it. She saw that she didn't die, and she thought Adam had lied to her. So it was really his fault that she ate, not Adam's fault. Bet you hadn't heard that one before.
Is that a midrash or?
You actually had?
I had, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I had it pointed out that like what she says is the commandment. It's not the same thing as what the actual commandment was.
Yeah, this is from the Midrash, and this is actually so this is part of, so rabbinically, so Christians often don't realize when they accuse Jews of confusing what is rabbinic and what is Torah. Like, we take that really seriously, and because we believe it is actually a prohibition of the Torah to confuse the two, right? And so this is one of the drashas that you get on Genesis 1, basically whenever, Genesis 2, whenever rabbis talk about it, is like, yeah, you have to be careful not to always to differentiate between that which is rabbinic and that which is actually biblical. And this is one of the stories that is commonly told about why it is a mistake. And the serpent pushing her.
Of course, the lady slipped something into the oral tradition about, oh, it wasn't our fault,
Yeah,
Adam told us so.
It's all the women's fault. Yeah.
Yeah. And, why not just add something to the oral tradition about how there's no distinction between the oral and the Torah, and
No,
Yeah.
I mean the funny thing is a lot of the things, and I keep on saying this, a lot of the things that Jesus says are in fact things that rabbinic Judaism said in against other forms of Judaism, including the Sadducees and the Essenes and the Zealots, and for some reason, a lot of, and to some extent, I did it myself as well. I always imagined that when Jesus had criticisms, I eventually found out that a lot of the interpretations are actually Protestants criticizing Roman Catholics, and like I have even heard of Protestants like accusing Roman Catholics of just being like Judaizers or unreformed Jews or whatever, which is kind of hilarious. Josh, what are you looking up?
I'm looking at the actual poem that I was referring to. That
Father Stephen DeYoung would get very angry with you using Paradise Lost.
well, it is like, yeah, it's not. It's got stuff in here that's not true. Lots of stuff in here that's not true. Well, like the fact that Eve walks away from Adam and before she's tempted, whereas the account given in Genesis, he's like right there. He's right there. And then he comes in and he's like, "Oh no, Eve, what have you done?" Oh, well, you know what? I love you so much. I love you so much that I'll do this for you. That I'll eat this just for you. Come on, man.
Have you read The Divine Comedy, Jacob? Oh, okay. Well,
I have not. Ethan wanted us to have like a Dante book club on my channel, and I was like, do it on Randos United.
yeah,
Like,
Dante
I
for one book, like.
Well, I mean, I can't really justify a Dante book club on my channel.
Well, he's
So how many of
obviously
Jacob's
collecting
greatest
Enoch.
hits? How many of Jacob's greatest hits have you heard, Josh?
None.
Zero?
Maybe one now from how much you hate PSA. So hopefully this isn't that wasn't clipped and that doesn't go onto a greatest hits channel. So
I don't actually have a greatest hits channel. I just repeat the same things over and over and over again.
yeah. So probably one now.
So are you going to read the poem?
Sure, I'll read a bit. Our mother Eve, who tasted of tree, giving to Adam what she held most dear, was simply good and had no power to see. The after coming harm did not appear. The subtle serpent that our sex betrayed, before the fall so sure a plot had laid. That undiscerning ignorance perceived, no guile or craft was by him intended. For had she known of what we were bereaved, to his request she had not condescended. But she by cunning was deceived. No hurt therein her harmless heart intended, for she alleged God's word, which he denies, that they should die, but even as gods be wise. But surely Adam cannot be excused. Her fault, though great, yet he was most to blame. What weakness offered, strength might have refused. Being Lord of all, the greater was his shame. Although the serpent's craft had her abused, God's holy word ought all his actions frame. For he was Lord and King of all the earth, before poor Eve had either life or breath. So
I see the line, man. So Rabbi Manis Friedman is a much smarter person than I am, who takes the Rebbe's teachings and he tries to say them in interesting and new ways, which many people find interesting and new, and other people find offensive because they try to misunderstand what he's saying. I like Rabbi Friedman is not one of the great rabbis in the world. He's an interesting speaker. Obviously, he's much more knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable than I am. So I'm not in some way placing him myself even in his same league, but at the same time, I think it is a mistake a lot of people make, which is they see a rabbi who's popular on the internet and they think that this is a prominent rabbi. And Manis Friedman is a popular speaker. He is not a prominent rabbi. Krish is one of our... Are you a Noahide now, Krish? I thought you officially decided to be a Noahide. Ryan is one of our Noahides. He lives in Australia, not Austria, Australia. And we have a bunch of people watching. Like 10 of them.
Wow.
Krish is a Noahide. There we go. The floor is yours, Josh. What do you want to talk about?
Well, when I jumped in, you were kind of talking a bit about, we were talking about the English, KJV being the
Yes.
correct version. But I don't know, I haven't really spent a lot of time with the King James version, but
How's your Hebrew?
No. Non-existent.
Hebrews?
Well, because it is like I was actually given a Hebrew Bible when I was like an infant. I had a lot of medical problems when I was an infant, so I was given a Hebrew. Although it was not from like a rabbi. It was from a ethnic Jew, but he became a Christian. So I have both like Old and New Testament in Hebrew.
In Hebrew?
So,
interesting.
yeah.
So you're going to have to learn Hebrew.
Well,
it's actually a pretty
it
easy
would.
language to learn. And with the brainiac you are, you would have no trouble learning Hebrew.
I got a couple friends that are a little better with languages than I am, but I do find it really interesting that because KJV now with my friend circle, it's kind of, people don't like it. It's got a lot of problems with it. But I have heard that and seen when I do look at it that it is at least trying something with translation of trying to be a little bit more poetic than a lot of translations are today. And it is really interesting, like that difficulty. I know I read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight recently, and there was a good introduction where the guy who translated the book was just talking about how difficult it can be to translate poetry. And there's a lot of poetry in the Bible. And so you're not going to get exactly the same thing if you're just reading it in a different language. And if you're just reading word for word versus if they've taken a little bit more liberty to try to maintain some of the poetry. So I think that's what would be nice about knowing Hebrew.
Yeah, I mean, no, the Hebrew is actually like poetic. This is one of the big things about Genesis 1.
Yeah, because isn't even just for an example, that like the first words that Adam says is a poem, right? Of that if we look at it in English, growing up, I'm like, what? Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. That's a weird thing But yeah, like
Right.
all of Genesis 1 is a
Yeah,
It's a
Genesis
poem.
1 may be the most lyrical part of the entire Hebrew Bible. And so I don't know any Jews who say, "Oh, I can't believe in God because Genesis 1 is literal." Partially because it's like, well, something that's that poetic, it's a lot easier to say, "Oh, it's just poetry." Right? Not that I'm saying it's just poetry, but yes, Chezi, we are still going. By the way, Josh, you're welcome to join us in Jerusalem for the conference in February.
I'm not sure I'll be able to make that, but
so the reason I mentioned it is Chezi asked if we're still going, and Chezi lives in Jerusalem. And he's helping us. He's actually the one who's coordinating the conference in Jerusalem. Actually, interesting thing, Chezi, I didn't realize until Ben and I did the Va'atatzaveh, the mimer from the Rebbe for Gimel Tammuz, but he prepared it for Purim Katan, so I thought that was really interesting. Which is the conference is going to be on Purim Katan, which is a minor Jewish holiday. And Krish, where do you live? There are very, very few Noahide communities in the entire world. And so it is very hard to find community as a Noahide, although hopefully you should be able to go to the local Chabad, and they should not be completely incompetent in providing some community services. Sorry for the interruptions.
Super random question.
Super random answer.
So there's this fringe idea that hell is cold. What do you think?
I think anybody who thinks of hell as that literally should spend a good long time reading the Maimonides and his introduction to chapter 10 of Sanhedrin, where he spends about 5 pages making fun of people who take things very literally. He spends a lot of time making fun of, like, he distinguishes people in terms of like how smart they are, and the dumbest people are the ones who like ask him, once there's the resurrection of the dead, are we gonna look young or old? He's like, no, that's a dumb question. Dumb question. But that's Maimonides. He was very anti-literalists. But like, no, I mean, there are things in the Bible you should not take literally. Please, for the love of God, don't take them literally. And one of them is the lake of fire stuff. Like, if you actually think that eternal punishment is going to be a literal lake of fire, you're a 5-year-old.
Okay, Jacob, don't take the hell is cold idea literally. What do you think of it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the word Korach, right? So this past week's Parsha, Korach, right? The guy who gets swallowed up. Korach literally means ice. And so this idea of God's like the coolness, right? Or it says Amalek happened to you on the way, right? You can also translate that Korcha b'derech happened to you as cooled you on the way. And there's all kinds of interpretations about like the coolness of like God being a fire and a heat and darkness being cold and stuff like that. So like, yeah, the symbolism of cold as outer darkness, it's all over the Bible.
Another super random question. Bodily resurrection.
Yes.
How do you justify it? How do you defend it?
I defend it as I believe in bodily resurrection because this is what God taught and I don't have to understand it. No, I mean, okay, so actually I almost did a stream because PBK was talking about UFOs and extraterrestrials. I almost did this stream, so I might as well. This is one of Jacob's new greatest hits. So I am not saying I believe this is what the Bible is, what Judaism teaches, or is definitely going to happen. I am saying if this were to happen, it would in no way at all, in any way contradict with anything I believe Judaism teaches. And I want that distinction to be clear, right? There's a very large set of things that could fit into possibilities of fulfillment of actual prophecy. This is one of them, which when I describe it, I have had so many people be like, yeah, I actually think this is what's going to be. But like, it doesn't have to be, right? If tomorrow morning a UFO landed on the Temple Mount, looked like Ezekiel's temple, a bunch of aliens got out, said, we have been teaching you guys Torah for the past 3,000 years, and the entirety of the Hebrew Bible is us communicating to your puny minds our far advanced technology as best we could, and then they explained it with their vastly better understanding how all of it makes perfect sense as far as we were able to understand it. That would in no way change anything for me whatsoever.
Yeah, but that wouldn't
Jacob,
happen.
You've been spending
because
too much time with Mormons. All I'm saying.
What wouldn't happen, Josh?
that wouldn't happen. I don't think that would happen because there's no way that the aliens come down and they're like, okay, for 3,000 years we've been like trying to beam this to you through like writing. We've been trying to get you guys to understand, and now you guys are to the point when you can know the truth. Now you guys, there's no way, man.
Why is there no way?
Today, I think they might want it to stew a little bit more before, unless they want to come down. Unless they want to come down and be like, okay, we've been trying this and it's just not. Too many of you guys are messing this up.
The world has. So this is another one of Jacob's greatest hits, but like I believe Christianity and Islam exist to prepare the world to accept Jewish teachings. And 2,000 years ago, like if they came to you and said, hey, Josh, you know, the Hebrew part of your Bible, it's true, you would be like, what Hebrew part of my Bible? Because your family were like worshiping animals. Now your family has a memeplex, which we call the Christian Bible, which within it contains the truth with a bunch of other stuff, and now you can be taught the truth. Get it? So, like, without Christianity and Islam preparing the world to the point it is now, how could we possibly have, like, the truth? Chazi's here to make me stop.
He's good. Yeah.
He's gonna be like, Jacob, we're trying to be nice to these people. Stop beating up on the Dutch.
We're kind of asking for it anyway.
Jacob, for some reason, I doubt that aliens will fill the world with the knowledge of God. You know,
Why?
Why?
Why can't aliens be the angels that the Bible talks about?
Jacob, I do not think that the Messiah will be an alien.
No, the Messiah is definitely not going to be an alien. He's probably just going to be Rabbi Barry right there. He's only 35. He just turned 35. Can you believe that? It's hard to believe.
I should have hopped on the space trilogy stream that was going on earlier today. I should have hopped on with them. I could have talked about all the Christian stuff in they're like, oh my gosh, if aliens are real, they're totally Christians, guys.
Have you read the space trilogy?
Oh yeah, they're great.
Yeah,
they're great.
So why didn't you jump on? Ted's actually a pretty nice guy.
I was busy. I saw it was going on like 10 minutes or so before.
Please tell me you have a girlfriend.
No, I've never dated.
Oh, here you get your lecture.
Not gonna lecture you yet.
I'm in a small town. Okay, it's like 9,000 people here, and I'm.
You've heard of the internet? Christian singles, Christian mingle,
yeah,
Christian.
I'm so ready. As soon as I can get out of here and be.
Wait. Small towns full of people willing to marry and have children become not small towns.
There you go.
Yeah, but I'm gonna move really soon. As soon as I get my degree, I'm gonna move.
Don't worry, she'll move with you. I promise. If she marries you, she will be willing to move out of town with you. There you go.
That is true. Well, I got my degree in petroleum engineering, so I was not sure. For all I know, I could be going up to Alaska. So.
Or Saudi Arabia.
But.
No,
yeah, good luck being Christian there.
I don't think so.
One of my
I'm sure if they would hire me out there.
One of my friends.
Oh, there's plenty of Christians working on the oil fields in Saudi Arabia.
No, it's just I'm not sure if I have all the connections and everything to work out that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know anything about it. Yeah, but yeah. You'll get a job. Petroleum engineering, come on.
We'll see. Trying.
Why a master's
Shadow
degree, not a PhD?
Very dignified.
Master's degree because I was not planning on getting a master's degree, but I was about to graduate, and then in 2020, I worked for my professor, and we were having one of our weekly meetings. I was getting ready to graduate in about a year, and he said, "Hey, would you like to stay for a master's degree? I'll give you a full ride."
Full ride's good.
So I said, all right. Oil industry was not looking so good, so I said, all right, I'll do that.
See, the fact is, I think if we are at all intelligent, we should be firing up a lot of atomic power plants, to the point that I actually think like petroleum engineering should be like for making plastics and not like.
I mean, we still use so much of it, billions of barrels per year. Most cars today are
power.
Yeah, but you can't put nuclear power in a car. So
right,
like we're moving towards having electric cars, but even still today, most of our cars are running on.
Yeah.
So I got a question on nuclear power because my brother-in-law worked at Pickering for his whole career, but we were always chatting about how much even in the good of running nuclear power, you're actually using a lot of coal and other things for power generation. Is nuclear power currently working on a lot of clean options as well as being a clean option?
As far as I know, if we weren't being silly, we could run pretty much. I mean, all our electricity, at least, we could be running on pretty safe nuclear, small nuclear plants. But like, people are so afraid of nuclear power and the green movement. So I'm a big fan of Michael Schellenberger, and he's a big proponent of nuclear power. And it's the type of thing where I don't care enough to look into it. I just care enough to know if, like, to find experts I'm willing to listen to.
Yeah.
And Michael Schellenberger, Bjorn Lomborg, Jordan Peterson, basically everybody I know who makes sane policy has been like, we should be firing up nuclear power plants like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I'm for nuclear. I'm all good with it. I think, I partially got into petroleum engineering because, for one, I didn't really care about the bad press about it, and because a lot of people my age, for some reason, they talk about oil like it's just going to go away real soon, and it's just not.
Well, how much of petroleum engineering is fuel, and how much of it is other things?
Well, it can go into other things as well. You can do sort of like water. You could do hydrology with it. You could also do now geothermal is becoming more popular, and my department is kind of like reaching out, making a couple of overtures for geothermal. So there's other stuff to do, but it's still primarily oil. We do a bit of natural gas. Natural gas is good. It's a good source.
Oh, hold on. Okay, so I may be misunderstanding. I thought petroleum engineering meant all kinds of things you could do with petroleum, not necessarily fuel consumption.
So I'm petroleum engineering is the upstream, getting oil out of the ground. When I compare my classes, what I am taught versus a lot of the people at the university are mechanical engineers, and it sounds like the mechanical engineers are taught like, okay, this is kind of how you design something, and these are just general principles. I'm taught, okay, you want to drill a hole? We already know how to drill a hole. You just drill it like this. If you run into this problem, drill it like that.
So very practical engineering for the petroleum industry.
At least for undergrad stuff, yeah. There's research and stuff to be done. Right now, there's a lot of enhanced oil recovery, going back through old oil reservoirs and figuring out new ways to get more oil. Because, I mean, how much oil we actually get out, right? A lot of the oil is still going to be stuck in the ground. If you just stick an oil rig, if you were to just stick a derrick down and allow natural flow to get all the oil out, you maybe get 20% of what's down there, maybe. Now with all of the most advanced different methods that we're coming up with and that we're still progressing towards, that we're still trying to make better and better, the maximum that we can get out of a field is maybe about 60% of what's actually down there.
Wow.
And so there's still, one of my professors told us, like sophomore year or something like that, if you could design a way to get an extra 5%, you'd be a billionaire, because there's still lots down there.
So do it.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, just they're doing a lot. They do a lot of stuff.
Tell you what, if you become a billionaire, you're going to give $10 million to my Noahide recovery center. If you make that commitment, God may in fact decide Josh should be a billionaire, because I'm pretty sure God wants my Noahide rehabilitation center to happen. So
Sure. You know what? I'll make that promise. If I became a billionaire, game
$10
on.
million. Okay.
10 million.
At least.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Okay. So Andrew is a chemical engineering student.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Charlie is actually mechanical engineering. So.
Oh wow, a lot of.
Yeah, you can get the oil. I'll turn it into plastic, and Charlie can, I don't know, do something like that.
Jacob,
Chazi.
you may find this interesting. In my past career as a lawyer,
Yeah.
I had a client. I think the name of the oil site was called Gvaot Olam, and this man, it was used to be secular, became religious, got very close to the Rebbe, and together with the Rebbe, they found some verse. They were insistent, and the Rebbe, I think, told him that he's gonna find oil over there, and he went digging there, and he did in fact find oil over there.
Yeah.
And he was digging in Israel for.
Oh,
Did we lose him again?
yep.
This story happened with the Rebbe several times. Goodkin in Australia, similarly, I think he found opals or something because the Rebbe told him where to dig. The Rebbe was really. Israel must be a country full of lawyers. Yes, it is a country so full of lawyers that Chazi stopped being a lawyer because even though I'm pretty sure was a successful one. His brother's a lawyer. My cousin is in Israel and a lawyer. Israel has a lot of lawyers.
Super random question. So, you know the whole literature on like whatever theosis and becoming a saint and da 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 da. You know.
I don't know the whole literature. I've heard of it.
Blah blah blah. You know the line, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. What about like the opposite? Can you like, I don't know, become a demon or something like that?
Become a demon, no, but in Jewish concepts, it is possible to lose levels of soul to the point of actually cutting yourself off from God enough to cease to exist.
Okay, so now we get into the questions of like evil as a parasite on the good, and like, does evil actually exist, and all that sort of stuff.
I mean,
like,
how many times have I explained this to you?
Okay.
Come on, you're one of the regulars. You know Jacob's greatest hits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I ask you, does the veil of reality actually exist? And then you say only as much as everything exists, or whatever, something like that.
Yes, everything only exists to the point where God wants it to exist. That is the extent of the existence of everything. Everything only exists to the extent that God wills it to exist. Even Paul of Tarsus said that. And he's the biggest idolater I know. Okay, it's midnight. Chazi has...
Midnight? It's 3:20 in the morning.
Well, it's midnight here, and I have church tomorrow, so...
Yeah, it's been good to come back on.
Josh, you will create that YouTube channel and email me and come on my YouTube on my Discord.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to start with Josh Ministries pretty soon.
Yeah.
The CRC
Yeah, we'll
needs
see.
it. The reason for this whole stream was to give enough warning to the CRC that Jacob's coming after them.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, I hope I do justice to them. I mean, the CRC is, I really care about them. They're great, good family, good church family. Influenced me a whole lot.
For some reason, I have found myself being friends with a ton of Dutch people. God have mercy on my soul. And if the woke, I mean, if I'm gonna fight the woke anywhere, it's on the seas, at the CRCs.
You know, the Dutch among the Voicers crew were bemoaning some of their heritage, and I said, you know, maybe this is the reason that God is blessing you with so many non-Dutch people.
Well, God is blessing them with so many non-Dutch people because Paul Vanderklay, as a missionary, actually believes in the gospel and actually, like, it's so funny. Every time I hit him with Calvinism is just theological nihilism, his answer is, but he doesn't know any Calvinists who actually act like they believe in double predestination. And it's funny, but he kind of sort of does. But at the same time, he actually believes that God, like he believes in irresistible grace, and he actually believes that God like actually loves people, and so he actually believes people will be saved. Chezi, we were about to go to sleep. How was the kindergarten party with your kid?
Oh, too late.
Okay, I am going
Not
to
gonna
bed.
tell us. Have a good night.
Josh,
good night,
get on Discord.
Oh, he's back.
He was for a second. Josh, get on Discord. Start a YouTube channel. We'll talk.
Alrighty.
Good night, people.
Yeah. Have a good night.